Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Tahmina Watson, your host of Tahmina Talks Immigration. Welcome. This summer, I decided to record a series called Legal Heroes in the Trump Era. I wanted to speak with some of the lawyers who have stepped up beyond their day jobs to make a difference in immigration, civil rights, and much more. I wanted their insights from their work in the last 4 years so we can learn lessons to take into the future, especially as one of the most consequential elections in America lies ahead. The interview series became a book called Legal Heroes in the Trump Era: Be Inspired, Expand Your Impact, Change the World. The book can be found on Amazon and other outlets. I hope you will pick it up. Enjoy these interviews. I hope you'll learn a lot. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being here.
Well, welcome everyone. This is Tahmina Talks Immigration with your host, Tahmina Watson. And today I have an incredible guest, a dear friend, somebody who has been a mentor and a guide and a confidant for many years. Her name is Joan Tierney, and she is a retired administrative judge. But she has been one of the biggest proponents of the nonprofit that I started called WIDEN. She's a volunteer pro bono attorney, and she's here to talk about the impact she has made in the last 3.5 years, not just in immigration, but everything else. Welcome, Joan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me today, Tahmina.
Well, you know, I've known you for a long time, but my listeners and viewers, of course, don't know you. And I would love for them to know you a little bit before we talk about all the various types of activities that you do on a daily basis, actually. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Washington, D.C., in Georgetown. I grew up in Connecticut and came to Seattle in 1975.
Wow, you're one of the original Seattleites then. Those who are not born here, you know, and those who come here, 75 is quite a long time. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And it was quite an active place. There was a lot going on in Seattle in the 70s.
Really? In 75, wasn't it? Sleepless in Seattle days though, when it was sleepy?
Not if you were on the left.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so happy to hear it. You and I have to talk offline about that. So did you always want to be a lawyer?
Well, I wanted to be a lawyer, but all of my role models, family members, Perry Mason, were all men. And I just didn't feel like I really had a place, although I really wanted to be a lawyer. And in 1964 and the period of learning about, you know, Birmingham Sunday, civil rights, all the unrest, the initial fight for freedom in the 60s, I really wanted to make a difference. And so I wanted to become a social worker. And I started thinking that I would make an impact in public health and went to perinatal social work, working with young mothers and their babies, and ended up doing a lot of work with farm workers, people who were not here legally, but were struggling to get resources for their babies. And so I would get calls periodically, and I would tell the person calling me that I didn't work for immigration and that my only job was to make sure that the resources were given, and I pursued it from there. So I really believed in serving people first to be healthy, these women and their babies. It was a real important thing for me.
So tell us about what happened next. How did you get to being a lawyer?
Okay, I was representing some different women in administrative hearings where you didn't have to be a lawyer to represent them. And then one day I went home and thought, my clients don't need a social worker, they need lawyers. And I want to do that, and I want to be there for them. And so I went to Seattle University School of Law, which is a great place to study the Jesuit tradition of social justice. And I took administrative law with Lisa Brodoff. And we had the fantastic people I've met that you now see in the news, Brian Adamson, the professors at Seattle U, and they really provided an excellent pathway to pro bono work. As a law student, Rule 9, we were working down in housing justice with Murph Amen and just serving in the pro bono capacity right from as soon as we could in law school.
That's amazing. And so then what happened? You graduated from law school.
I graduated from law school, and I was asked by Dean Donna Deming if I would come back to the law school and work in career services, even though my bar card ink was not really dry yet, but in a social work counseling capacity and in the helping students after 9/11. There were people whose family members died in the Pentagon and died in those buildings, and students' jobs were being rescinded. So it was a hang on, have faith, and coming from a perspective not of hatred for groups of people because of what happened, but a healing and a we'll get through this, and this is what you can do in the meantime. And I think Seattle U did a really good example of that, of not perpetuating anti-Muslim sentiment at all. That it was, this is what happened, and this is where we're going to go from here. And so I worked with at Seattle U, and I worked for Erica Lim, who you may know her, and she did a lot of pro bono work for the bar. I did too. I was working in a legal clinic, and she told me to step up my game, and so I did, and I represented people in front of DSHS and in housing justice. I worked every year with the Lauren Miller Bar Association on the estate planning. Once a year there was estate planning and wills writing clinics. I got to do that. I joined the Community Legal Services Committee. I chaired that for a couple of years, and I became a trustee of the King County Bar Association. I was fortunate enough to work on the diversity committee with Judge Michael Spearman, and that was good. I just met so many wonderful people, and now I'm very happy that John McKay is the president of the Bar Association. I worked with, was president of Washington Women Lawyers, worked with Washington State Bar on the diversity committee. They worked really hard on that at the time, and worked with putting on CLEs, presenting, and making sure that everyone understood that as lawyers, it's great to make a living, but then what we can give to other people through the pro bono programs, whether it was through WISBA or through King County Bar. And there was always a place for me until immigration, because I didn't have the skills.
Wow. You know, we're going to come and talk about immigration in just a moment, but your DNA is, you know, it's all pro bono and public interest and save the community and social justice. And it's such an admirable skill and so inspirational. So I hope anybody listening to your story will get inspired by you, because you truly are an inspiration, not just to me, but to a lot of people. And I am fortunate to follow in your footsteps and be a board member of the King County Bar Association, where I will be following the lead of the current president, John McKay. And what a wonderful organization that is. And because I'm a board member of King County Bar Association, and I'm a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association here, we've been able to partner in a very timely clinic, actually. And if there's time, I'll tell you about it afterwards. But it sounds to me that, you know, making sure that the community is safe and that you can do whatever you can in your capacity is basically a big part of who you are. It is who you are. And so when the November 2016 election happened, what was going through your mind at the time?
First of all, this can't be happening. This is not acceptable. I went out with thousands of other marchers and marched in the Women's March. and came home feeling like, okay, we did that, and now what can we do? When the Muslim ban came out, we were on our way downtown, and I thought, we have to get to the airport. And then I realized that my bar status was judicial and I couldn't do anything legally. And I didn't know anything about immigration law. And so I was basically just at the sidelines. And so I thought long and hard about what did I want to do. And I wanted to return to active status. You were there. I think you might have called the meeting of the bar leaders, past and present. We had a meeting of, okay, now that this is what we're dealing with as a president and the policies, what are we going to do as lawyers? And how are we going to do our part to make sure that democracy is not destroyed and that people's lives are not ruined? And I feel just so strongly about that issue, that it's working on immigration, but also joining Indivisibles and the postcard group, Get Out the Vote. And I have been working nonstop, writing postcards to voters, sending letters to voters in Georgia. I'm really excited about Fair Fight, started by Stacey Abrams. Everything is just on full blast right now to preserve voter rights, save the post office, make sure we can vote by mail. People are risking their lives during COVID to vote because democracy matters. And I think that sends a tremendous message to those who are in power now, that you can abuse people and then everybody's on board now. After George Floyd and seeing a murder on television, we've all heard about these events, but we never saw it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And there's no denying that everyone is moving forward for civil rights. I really believe that. There's a handful of people, a little pocket that still supports, I won't say his name, but I don't know why, but I do know why.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like to, I know why. But I just want to say that I'm so grateful when WIDEN came along, when you contacted me about WIDEN, that there was a way for non-immigration lawyers to plug in and be helpful. And work. I was fortunate enough to work under Lourdes Fuentes and with Shelley Garzon, and to make a difference in a woman's life and to get her bond and to work for her to get resources in Chicago and be able to connect her with a lawyer there, team of lawyers, to get her amnesty hearing done properly. And it just feels so good. I'm eternally grateful to you, Tahmina, for starting WIDEN. It was easy to join, I was happy to join Lawyer Moms under Aaron, when Aaron put the call out, and Tracy's call for Lawyers for Good Government. But this was an actual way that I could take my legal skills, be mentored, and make a difference. And I do want to say to everyone who is not an immigration lawyer that WIDEN really is the place for you. And if you're thinking that your skills are not fresh and sharp, and you've been on the bench, or you've been retired, you have done other pro bono work, but not this work, that there is a place for you. It might be doing legal research and making a really important contribution to the brief that will be presented to the court. It might be procuring housing and resources to someone once they are out of detention. There's a place for you. And I really encourage everyone to contact the Washington State Bar if you're inactive, move to active status under the pro bono status. You name WIDEN as your pro bono agency of choice. They send you the paperwork under COVID, and you send it to Tahmina and get it filled out. and there you are. You're able to be active again. And I really encourage people to do that, because there is a place for everyone. Because I've been meeting people through my postcard work who were saying, oh, I wanted to work with WIDEN, but I've never done immigration and I don't want to get in the way.
Well, thank you so much, Joan. You have been an incredible angel to me personally, because when we were starting WIDEN, it was a brand new concept, and it was challenging to get a new organization up and running, particularly when you have a vision that hasn't been done in this way before. So it was a challenge, but when it took 18 months to get off the ground, sort of from concept to actually there's an organization here. But you truly were the first person who said, put me to work. And you had case number one, and you have set the example of what pro bono attorneys should be doing. And having that legal skill and the know-how of how to deal with people and clients and cases was immensely useful. So I'm so grateful eternally to you for being part of this program, an organization. But what I wanted to actually take the listeners and the viewers to was really that moment when you did answer the call to WIDEN. Because if we look back at January 2017, we saw the Muslim ban, and of course that took several months to come to a sort of calmer state where the Supreme Court really sort of put the nail in the coffin and said, okay, the third iteration will allow you to have it. But it didn't stop the administration from having assault after assault on immigration in different ways. But what we didn't really realize that they would have no mercy, and we would see a time where children would be separated from their parents in very large numbers. And so that is when Lawyer Moms of America, and Erin Albanese is also part of this series. There's a show with her, and listeners, viewers, please go and listen to that show. She had started Lawyer Moms of America sort of around the same time that WIDEN was getting off the ground. And I think when you mention Lawyer Moms of America, it's really these two brand new organizations were coming together where you had utilized the network that was being created. So separation of parents was really the first case type that we had, and you were doing that. And I'm so grateful because you knew what a judge would need, because you have been serving as a judge until then. And so the way you would handle a case was also very, very important. But you also knew that even if you were a judge, you didn't have the expertise in this area. And so when we had our first mentor, Lourdes Fuentes, a nationally renowned immigration attorney, you all just clicked as a wonderful team, knowing what each person's role would be. So thank you for setting that example and saying what you've done. I want to list a few things that you have mentioned in this conversation. So a lot of times people think that I don't know what to do. That's not a problem that you have. You have been writing postcards, you have been going on activist walks. Can you list a few of these? Because how do you find out about these? People who are sitting on the sideline thinking, I wish I could do more. How do you find out about this information and activism?
Okay, well, it was interesting because during the impeachment hearings, there were the Mueller book groups. Mueller talks about, okay, what's happening, and educating myself. And through that group, I met the people from, I knew I was involved in the calls from National Indivisible. And that, I was looking at Twitter one day and I saw a tweet from Indivisible, and I contacted them, and then they asked me if I wanted to be involved in listening to, their podcasts that they had. So they had national calls. Then through that, I learned about the Indivisible Wallingford, and I just contacted them and asked, I don't live in Wallingford, but I live nearby. Can I be a member? And so I learned about their activities, and through that, I learned about the postcard writing. And it's just, there's this whole network of activists that contact each other through text, or I hate to use Facebook, but actually I do use it to see what's going on. And for the time being anyway, people are still posting when there's a march, when there's a campaign, when there's a donation needed. And now people are even using Instagram. I think Instagram though now is owned by Facebook, so it's the same. But the learning about what activities are available, and walking is my passion. And so I found out about the civil rights race for freedom, and there are ways to raise money by walking for the National NAACP and African American Museum. It's there's just so much we can do, and the postcard writing is really great during the time of COVID. Deb Karstens is great about dropping postcards off to me and picking them up from my house when I tell her they're finished, and just working on letter writing campaign and getting excited. Mona Das put out the call, contacted me personally and asked me if I would support her campaign to elect Black women, women of color to our local races. And so,
just so people know who she is, she's a Washington State Senator.
Yes, she is. And I met her through you. And so Senator Das was great about, okay, I'm here. And so now I want to bring up all these other women. And she has done a fabulous job of asking people to donate, her matching fund. I don't think I can turn on my Facebook feed without getting another group who is putting this forward. And it's really important that we do this.
You are such an energizer bunny. You know, you are an inspiration, and you are really doing something every day, multiple things, and we get to see them through your Facebook posts and other social media. And you truly are somebody who really believes in the good that people can do, and you live by that. So I'm so grateful that you're in my life, because I really do admire you. And I think people who will be listening to this and seeing this video will also be inspired. I want to take the word activism for a minute. And, you know, there are lots of lawyers. I don't know the number of lawyers in this country, but lawyers go to school with an idealistic view of what they can do, generally speaking anyway. It's only when you get into life that you realize, you know, law has to be a means of paying your bills, but you don't necessarily have that until you know, come out of law school. And with those idealistic views, you know, now has been a time where people have been thinking about their skills. Can you speak a little about lawyer activism in the last 3.5 years?
Okay, lawyer activism to me is just looking to find groups like WIDEN and lawyer moms and offering your skills. Now for WIDEN, I was able to join the team with Lourdes and Shelley, and lawyer moms was put out a call that they'd like to have a resource list for emergency response. And I contacted Erin. I said, I think my daughter and I could do that. I don't really have good computer skills, but I have good research skills. And so we put together a national resource list. So that's activism that you can do at any point from your home and your computer. And then there's the activism that when you hear that there's a protest going on, you can either serve by walking in the protest or by being a legal observer, by actually looking at where can I do the most good for people that really need it. And there are so many pro bono programs, and I'm glad the King County Bar is working with WIDEN now. And there's just
working with AILA.
With AILA,
American Immigration Lawyers Association.
Yes. I always think of you as WIDEN. For 2 hats, probably 3 or 4, but that it's really important, I think, to have your skills instead of just sitting on them, that we just have so much to share, and it depends on the level of time that you have. You can be really committed and only have a certain amount of time to donate, and that's fine. And I did have a little secret. Once you retire, the world just opens up to opportunities to use your time to help other people, and not just, I mean, I love my yoga I love my walking and my bird watching, but that's not really deep down my core who I am. I just really want to be able to use my legal skills.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do that so well, and as I've said several times, you are an inspiration. And when I grow up, I want to be like you. And I hope a lot of people who will listen to this podcast, to this video, will really realize that being a lawyer means so much. It doesn't mean that you just have to be at your desk, pushing transactional papers. You can use your skills in whichever way you want, and you can make an impact. So, any last words for anybody listening, but particularly lawyers?
Well, particularly lawyers to look at what time you have, and now that people are working from home or not working, that there's so many opportunities, and the time I believe we have is short, because with the election coming up, we have to make sure that voter suppression is called out and worked on. I think lawyers have a real big role in voter suppression, opportunity for people to vote, to make sure that they know to register people. In fact, my new face mask says vote on it, and saves me social distancing, because as people approach me to ask me if I'm registered to vote, they see my mask and they keep their 6 feet. So it serves two purposes. But I think it's really important to remind people that people died to secure the vote. And we have that obligation to vote, and to make sure that it's not just us voting for our own interests, but that everyone who wants their voice heard has the opportunity, and they're not thrown off the voter rolls. And that we have a long way to go in terms of gerrymandering and all of the mess that's been happening, but that we just can't sit back in a democracy and let there be a sham election and let there be suppression. And there's the DACA issue. I know that everybody was really excited, myself included, until I read the decision and I said, oh, wait a minute. There's a roadmap that Roberts wrote him about administrative procedures. And I thought, well, okay. Then this morning, we learned that there was going to be a challenge. I don't know if there really will be, or whether it's hot air. I'm hoping that maybe rallies somewhere, which was a complete abomination to pick June 10th in Tulsa. It's a parade of horribles, and I won't get into all that now. I think it's really important to make sure we work on voting and to keep those children that are caged, get them out.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to work, continue to amplify, continue to just keep telling everyone that we have to have this stop. I have such deep admiration for Hope Fry and for Tracy and the grannies and you and everyone who's like, no, we're not going to be quiet. We are going to let everybody know what's going on, because in the bad old days, this all would have been suppressed and people would have said, I didn't know. And I think it's really important for us to say, we do know. And what are we going to do about it? And we can't just sit back.
Well, with those words, those powerful words, Joan Tierney, thank you so much for being on the show today, Tahmina Talks Immigration, and being you. And I hope people will be inspired. And if anybody wants to, follow your footsteps, I'll make sure they know where you are, if you'll let me.
Please do. I would love to talk to people who, especially people that want to go back to active pro bono status with WIDEN, and I'd like to help with that. So thank you, Tahmina, for having me. Thank you for what you do, and there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Very grateful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tahmina Talks is brought to you by Watson Immigration Law. Founded in 2009, Watson Immigration Law is one of Seattle's premier immigration firms, specializing in business and investment visas, but offering a wide range of immigration services. If you need assistance with your immigration needs, Watson Immigration Law is ready to help. Just call 206-292-5237 to schedule an appointment. Mention this podcast to receive a 10% discount off your initial consultation fee.